Now, from Wish TV, your local news source, this is All Indiana Politics.
Good Sunday morning. Welcome to another edition of All Indiana Politics. I'm Phil Sanchez. One of Indiana's Republican members of Congress is attacking Speaker Kevin McCarthy's treatment of Democrats. Congresswoman Victoria Spartz accuses the new speaker of using the very tactics he once criticized Democrats for using. She spoke with our government reporter, Garrett Berquist.
Let's welcome in Congresswoman Victoria Spartz. Congresswoman, thank you for talking to us today.
Thank you for having me.
You've spoken out quite forcefully over the past couple of days against Speaker Kevin McCarthy's threat to remove 3 Democrats from committee assignments. What compelled you to defend colleagues who are quite different from you ideologically?
Well, I want to make sure that this is not my job to defend any of my colleagues, but my job is to defend our constitutional principles, due process, and everyone's rights to be innocent until proven guilty. And I know that Democrats violated this last Congress, but if we believe in the rule of law, we shouldn't do the same. We shouldn't have kangaroo courts, and it makes it look then like a witch hunt. If we have legitimate reason, we have a process. Kevin can file a complaint in the ethics committee, and each member, regardless of their philosophy, has to be entitled to make their case and defend themselves, and the committee make a decision. We should really do that. Otherwise, we'll look like hypocrites.
Have you been able to speak with Speaker McCarthy or other members of Republican leadership one-on-one about your concerns? If so, how have those gone?
Well, I had some discussion with my colleagues, and I'll be honest with you, a lot of my colleagues have similar concerns, and as I said before, we have different hills to die on, and some people are not happy, and we pass it along to Kevin, and we'll see. I mean, he definitely doesn't like to be challenged, but I'll be honest with you, my job here not to please Kevin. My job is to make sure that my party is not going to let the American people down, and we do the right thing. And, I had very limited ability to do it with Speaker Pelosi. I didn't vote for her. I didn't support her. But with Speaker McCarthy, that is my responsibility to hold him accountable. So he will have to make some decisions, and we'll see. We're definitely concerned not just of me, but some other members. And we'll see how he's going to react on that, or he's going to try to use the top-down approaches, which I think it's not very wise of him.
Do you agree with Speaker McCarthy's demand that any increase in the debt ceiling be combined with spending cuts?
Well, I think we need to look at actually how we can, in a smart way, to reduce our spending, because what we're doing now, we're on a crash course. We have a ton of funds going bankrupt, but there are a lot of issues. Doing just like a cut, all across the board is actually a very stupid idea, because you will cut some things that are actually important, and then you will, not get rid enough of things that actually are bad. So I think you have to have a smart approach. And I suggested to Speaker McCarthy, we put task forces together. I wrote some bills, healthcare spending.
Would you support an increase in the debt ceiling in order to avoid a default on the debt if there were no spending cuts connected with it?
No, I think we shouldn't have that conversation. I think honestly, because we're really in a serious situation right now. We are going to be facing very significant challenges in the near future. Some of their funds are going to be insolvent, and then we'll have automatic cuts that will hurt a lot of people in very significant cuts, and we don't want to do that, and we don't want to get there. So I think we need to have a serious conversation, and Democrats should work with us on this issue. And some of the issue, that shouldn't be a political issue. That is, an issue that all Americans will benefit. It doesn't matter if you're Republican and Democrat.
Congressman Jim Banks has launched an official 2024 Senate bid. Former Governor Mitch Daniels was on the Hill meeting with Senate Republicans. You have said you are exploring the possibility. Do you plan to launch a Senate bid?
Well, I'm going to see what it is. I have a lot of good people very interested for me to do it. And because I understand, I just don't go on TV and talk about how great I am, but I actually pick real fight for issues that are important for we the people, and I deliver. And I understand that Senate is a broken institution doing nothing, and a lot of good legislation and good policy get installed there. And it's very difficult, from outside to really start, make that institution governing. It's very sad for me to see, but I'm going want to see, if we have good choices and people can get vetted and tested. I honestly, love our country. It's a great honor, but also always sad. I don't want to be in Washington, D.C. for a very long time because you lose touch of reality. And a lot of these people moved to D.C. and they've been here for decades.
Was the Biden administration right to provide 31 M1 Abrams tanks to Ukraine?
Well, I'll be honest with you, it's the same situation here. We're dragging our feet in a lot of this. We had these tank discussions long time ago. Issues got politicized and everything else because we want to decide, do we want to have this never-ending wars, or we want to be proactive and provide things much faster? Because the longer the war, the more expensive it is, but the most important, a lot of humans' lives are really going to be destroyed and people are going to die. And I think being proactive and doing things much faster will send much stronger message for President Putin to get to the table and have a serious conversation.
Should the United States provide more armored vehicles, including more tanks?
Well, I think, it's not just that. It's a combination, a lot of things, have a little bit longer range artillery too, because we always say, I say like, well, we need to really next time even say we're going to ship them from. We have a lot of intelligence that goes through tweet and TV, and it doesn't have to be really that way, but, we can provide some things that, Russians, not going to be able to adjust it quickly. And right now they pull back because we tell what exactly ranges of stuff we're given, where it's going to be, and shelling and killing a lot of people. And I think some of the stuff, could be in it should be a coordination of different things, but we need to take and see what it would take, to deter further aggression and really bring this war to an end.
All right, coming up, new numbers are out on how many Indiana college grads applied for loan forgiveness. We discussed the program with Education Secretary Miguel Cardona. Welcome back. The White House is doubling down on President Joe Biden's student debt relief plan. More than 500,000 Indiana college graduates have applied for the Biden administration student debt relief, and more than 300,000 have been approved. Those applications cannot be processed because there is a lawsuit pending against the program. Education Secretary Miguel Cardona talked about those numbers with our own Drew Blair.
Let's welcome in Miguel Cardona, U.S. Secretary of Education. Thank you so much for your time. The new numbers from the White House this week show more than 500,000 people in Indiana have either applied for or were automatically approved for student loan debt forgiveness. Are you satisfied with how many people have been able to apply?
I'm thrilled that the weekend we opened up our beta site. Without any fanfare, without any information, over 8 million people applied without us even promoting it. So I am pleased at the number of people that applied. We're waiting for the Supreme Court. We had, as you mentioned, over 540,000 apply. Close to 350,000 would have already been approved in Indiana alone. So we're really, those 350,000 people are waiting for the decision in Indiana, and those 350,000 people can benefit from debt relief so that they can go on and think about how they can help buy a home, help their children go to college, buy a home, and move on from the impacts of the pandemic.
So in reference to the program being held up in court, are you confident that people eligible for debt relief will see it by the end of 2023?
I am confident. Look, I have the legal authority to provide the debt relief that the president announced in August under the HEROES Act. And it's not the first time the HEROES Act was used to provide some support. Loan payments were paused in the last administration using the same authority that I'm using here to provide targeted debt relief. It's important to remember, this is not just widespread debt relief. These are for people. 90% of the dollars are going to people making under $75,000. So these are middle-class Americans, people from Indiana that just need a little bit of support to get back after this pandemic. We know it impacted all of us, and it's our goal to make sure that people are not worse off now than they were before the pandemic.
And we have heard some criticism to this program, including from Indiana leaders, Senator Mike Braun, saying it transfers the cost of college to 65% of American workers who did not go to college. How do you answer that?
Well, I think Senator Braun is wrong there. Senator Braun, I'm sure, didn't feel the same way when we provided loan forgiveness to businesses to keep their doors open because they needed help. Now, middle-class Americans in Indiana need help, and it's unfortunate that their senator is speaking against 350,000 people in Indiana getting support.
Now, we've talked a lot about debt relief, but let's talk about the actual cost of college. Do you think it's time to start thinking of actions to make higher education more affordable?
Absolutely. And if you look at our record, this loan forgiveness announcement was only a fraction of what we're trying to do. But going back to the question you said earlier, part of the impetus for this was to prevent defaults. We're doing this because our records show that defaults are going to go up if we don't do something. And, if you go into default or if you go into bankruptcy, you're hurting the local economy as well. So we're trying to get these folks back on their feet, but that also helps the local economy. And yes, to answer your question, college has become unaffordable. And that's unfair to the people in Indiana and people across the country who have the talent, the aptitude to be successful in college, but the cost of it has gotten too high. So we are working on implementing college accountability measures. We are working on listing those colleges and programs that are just not affordable.
Indiana lawmakers are talking about ways to redesign high school education to lessen the emphasis on students going to college, more emphasis on vocational programs and job skills. Is that a shift, something that you would like to see?
Absolutely. And I want to work with my colleagues on the Hill, Republican or Democrat. This is not a red or blue issue. This is about our kids having opportunities in life. Earlier this week, I announced the Raise the Bar initiative, and part of it was making sure that we're redesigning our high schools to have more career pathways. I myself went to a 4-year technical high school. I learned to be an automotive technician. So, you're not going to find someone who's a stronger supporter of this. I want to break this 4-year college or bust mentality in this country. There are high-paying, high-skilled jobs out there that are available to our students without having to have them fall into college debt traps. So yes, I'm in big favor of that.
All right, coming up, we break down this week's top headlines with Indiana's best political team. All right, welcome back to All Indiana Politics as we welcome back two members of Indiana's best political team, Democrat Kip Two and Republican Mario Musselmani. Good to see you both. Let's begin with those numbers on student loans. Already more than 300,000 Indiana college grads, as we reported, have been approved. Mario, we'll start with you this week. Secretary Cardona brought up the economic risk that debt poses. Your response to that, and should, in your opinion, any student debt be forgiven?
I don't believe it should be forgiven because of the fact that the people that are paying for the student loan forgiveness don't get to benefit in it. A lot of the people that are paying for the student loan forgiveness are people that didn't go to college, and if we are now changing the plate in which, or the environment in which we're going to be dealing with college student debt, we should focus on the fact that prices, tuitions are increasing significantly. We need to focus more on that, not on people that have already made the commitment to go to college and understand the debt that they are taking.
Uh-oh, Mario froze there. Kip, we'll let you respond.
Yeah, I mean, Mario's my friend, but I think he's about as wrong-headed about this as he is anything. And that is, we all pay for K through 12, all of us. We do it because we think education is an investment in everybody's future, not just the people who are being educated. The same thing goes for college education. We are not the same society we had back in the 1900s. It's a much more sophisticated economy. It's a much more sophisticated society, and we need more education to be able to get ahead and to help us advance. And it's a good investment for all of us to invest in college education or apprenticeship or other things like that, so that people get as much knowledge as they possibly can to help the world get better. I just think it's so short-sighted to go, well, I got mine and nobody else ought to be able to get theirs. We all are in it together when it comes to education.
Well, and I disagree, Phil. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that people made the commitment, made the decision to take out those student loans to go to college. And
They
now
didn't have a
have to-
choice, Mario. A lot of them didn't have a choice. They wouldn't have been able to go to college without it.
But the people that are paying for their student loan forgiveness might have made the decision not to go to college. And it is still not dealing with the problem of the tuition increases are significant over the next couple of years, as they have been in the past. That's
Well,
the
I'll
problem.
agree with you. I'll agree with you on that part. I do think we need to hit the other side of the equation as well. That much you and I can agree.
Gentlemen, it's certainly a divisive issue, and we could probably do the entire segment on this, but I have a couple other things I want to get to. I want to move on to Congresswoman Victoria Spartz's complaints about House Speaker Kevin McCarthy's committee decisions. Kip, how is this any different from some of former Speaker Nancy Pelosi's decisions, such as not seating Jim Banks on the January 6th committee?
Well, first of all, I want to thank Congresswoman Spartz for being consistent. It's nice to see. It's rare. And so I have to give her a kudos with regard to that. I do think the two things are distinguishable, however, and so I'm going to be inconsistent. And the difference is that Jim Banks was a person who was trying to minimize what happened on January 6th, and he was going to spend his time on the January 6th committee trying not to get to the bottom of what happened on January 6th, but try to blame Nancy Pelosi and to blame it all on the police, and that was his modus operandi going into it. And so he was going to be someone not trying to get to the truth, but someone to try to score political points. In this instance, Adam Schiff certainly is a highly respected member of Congress, and denying him a seat on committees makes no sense.
To that point, Mario, Eric Swalwell and Schiff both have a lot of experience serving on the House Intelligence Committee. So why allow partisan politics to affect who serves on panels as important as this one, sir?
Well, the problem is Nancy Pelosi started doing that 2 years ago, when she not only kept Banks off of a committee, but also Marjorie Taylor Greene, Paul Gosar from Arizona, without any sort of due process. I'm not saying that this should be done in this instance, but it's been done in the past, where the speaker has the determination with the majority of the vote to decide who's on committees and who's not. And that's what they're doing in this case, just like Nancy Pelosi started doing 2 years ago. So the Democrats set the precedent.
Let me distinguish that. That was a select
having
committee.
any sort of due process.
Mario.
They did that.
Mario, that was a select committee, and Marjorie Taylor Greene was part of QAnon when she first came to Congress. She may have switched her position on that kind of stuff now, but she was an avowed member of QAnon, and she was celebrating January 5th, saying, look what's going to happen on January 6th. It's putting a fox
Kip,
in charge of the hen house.
But Kip, along those lines, Representative Omar has been caught in numerous occasions bashing and speaking poorly and talking anti-Semitic language in her dialogue. And that same argument could be made against Representative Omar for her anti-Semitic views and her anti-Semitic rhetoric.
Kip, I'll let you respond quickly. I want to move on. Go ahead.
Well, I think they're distinguishable. I just want to reiterate that I appreciate Representative Spartz's consistency.
Okay.
So, Kip, you're fine with her anti-Semitic rhetoric?
Of heck no.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm against it too.
Right.
And that's the reason they were wanting to keep her off of that committee.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens there. Hey, staying with Congress, guys, for a moment. Republicans in Congress want spending cuts in exchange, as you guys know, for raising the debt ceiling. Mario, this is becoming a pattern in Washington. I have a minute left. I want to get you both in.
You know, this is something the Democrats and Republicans both use as a negotiation tactic. They understand that the debt ceiling is something that has to be approved, and they take it all the way down to the wire. Both the Republicans and Democrats are going to use this as a tool to try and get some carrots out of this agreement.
Kip, 30 seconds.
I'm really tired of the argument over the debt ceiling. I think we've been doing it for 2 decades now. It's stupid. It's a sideshow. It takes up way too much time. In the end, we have to pay our bills.
Yeah.
These are bills that are already due. They're not something that's going to affect what we do spending going forward. We have to pay our bills. I wish we'd be talking about the bail reform instead.
Well, maybe the next show. How about that? Guys, good to see you both. We'll talk soon. Take care. We'll be right back.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for joining us for All Indiana Politics this week. We'll be back here next Sunday morning at 9:30. You can also find our brand new All Indiana Politics podcast. It's part of the All Indiana Podcast Network over at wishtv.com. Have a great rest of your weekend.